Hello, welcome. Welcome to Stories in Focus. I'm Eloise Schottler, your storyteller host. We have a guest today, a very special guest. Joel Markowitz is the editor-publisher of an internet theater site, DCMetroTheaterArts.com. You'll see that later. And if you want to keep in touch with what's going on in the theater in the Washington, D.C. area, you should come look it up. Hello, Joel. I'm glad you're here.
So nice to see you again.
Yes, yeah, good you could come. We're going to talk about things that are happening in the Washington theater area. Although you expand beyond Washington, where do y'all go with your reviews? You cover more than Washington.
Well, we call it the D.C. metro area, so we're including Annapolis, Baltimore, which has a huge theater community.
It does, doesn't it?
It does, and Amanda Gunther, who covers that area for us, I think she sees the show almost every night.
Lucky her. Lucky.
Well, I don't know. I'm feeling bad for her. Nobody has seen her in years.
That's cool. Now, so you use a lot, you have a lot of writers on your staff.
I think we're over 60 now. Isn't that crazy?
It is wonderful. It's wonderful.
And it's all ages. And that's because all ages have a story to tell.
Exactly, exactly. Now, the theater season has officially opened in the D.C. metro area, right?
Right.
What's the usual time? The beginning of September?
I think it's September, basically, end of August, early September. A lot of the big theaters start early.
Yeah. How does it look to you? What looks coming up?
Well, let's just say we covered over 200 things on D.C. Metro Theater Arts last month. There is so much coming up, because you know you're a writer on the site, too.
Yeah, I know. I'm happy to be.
No, we're honored that you're part of that staff. But there are so many good shows out there. I've lost count and sleep trying to put this stuff up.
Well, the thing that people ought to understand is, tell us what you do to get those up. You work all the time on posting those sites, don't you?
Well, I think what's happening with our site is very popular, thank God for that. And things are always coming in because we just don't cover theater, as you know. We cover a lot of concerts. Strathmore, George Mason has 2 locations. They have their Center for the Arts in Fairfax. They also have Hilton Performing Arts. What is it called? Hilton. Let me start again here.
Yeah.
Okay, Hilton Performing Arts Center out in Manassas.
Wow.
And they have classical, they have pop, they have all kinds of events and concerts happening there. Then you know about the Patriot Center is out there. There's just so much going on. Kennedy Center has tons of concerts, as we all know, and theater. Book of Mormon just sold out in like half a second when it went on sale.
But you know what impresses me about what you're doing is that you cover all these big sites, but you also give an umbrella of coverage to the middle level sites, don't you? And to anything theater that's going on in the area.
You know what's amazing here is, who do you think's doing the best theater? And I have to apologize to the big theaters because they have large budgets, and a lot of them are bringing in shows that have done well on the road. And they come here and they do well here critically, which is great for them.
Right.
And I've seen some great stuff, especially at Arena Stage. But the middle-sized theaters and the small theaters, and let's not forget community theater in this area, which is so exceptional. I know that since we've started reviewing their shows, a lot of them are saying to me, you know, we know you're coming now, and our quality is better. We know we have to be better. And we're right here in Kensington. And Kensington Arts Theater, which is one of my favorite community theaters in the area and one of my favorite theaters, period, in the area. They're about to do another production of Parade. It's their first production of Parade, I think, here. But Parade is, you know, a very popular musical about a sad story in our history of Leo Franks being lynched and falsely accused of killing someone.
Wow.
And Jason Robert Brown is the composer. I'll start again. Jason Robert Brown is the composer. He won the Tony Award for it, for Parade. It's a very sad story, but it's a very powerful story of things that really haven't changed so much since it happened.
Well, you know, the thing about it is, I was thinking that years ago, my husband and I discovered community theater, and it wasn't as it is today, but it was good. I mean, you know, we were finding small niches out in the suburbs of theater, and it's just blossomed. And what you're talking about is that, hey, you don't have to go downtown, and you don't have to have that huge budget to enjoy good theater in the D.C. metro area.
Well, let me give a plug to, it's not too far from here, is F. Scott Fitzgerald Theater.
Yes.
Rockville Civic Center, as they call it. You've got Rockville Musical Theater performing there. Rockville Little Theater is opening a new show shortly there. There's some great theater out here. I mean, you go to our site, and we decided we were not going to break people down by community theater, professional theaters like other sites do, because we treat everybody the same, because we know we will find great theater and sometimes not so great theater in any size theater.
Well, that's what makes a site like yours so important. If people are really interested in looking at what they want to see, if they check you out, don't you try to get in there on preview?
Well, we try to get there and interview, either take the reader behind the scenes. Directors will come in and write certain articles. We'll do a series of articles, following it from, you know, auditions, from casting to auditions to opening night. So we do a lot of that, so the reader is taken right behind the scenes. How did this happen? Who wanted to do this show? Why did they want to do this show? And who came out to cast? Now, community theaters don't pay, and that's can be a problem sometimes. You're not getting the people from the professional theaters trying out, but sometimes you do, because there is not always tons of work out there. And so people will waive their equity or come down and work in the community theater.
Well, because they want to keep their edge.
They want to keep the edge, and they want to keep going. They want to learn things. And every show is a learning experience. It's the one thing, it's a learning experience for myself. Every time a review comes in or an article comes in, I'm becoming a better writer. I'm becoming a better editor, because I have a team of enthusiastic cheerleaders in the theater. That's where a mentoring site is, you know. People like yourself who has so many years, and I don't want to insult the age or anything. This is a good thing. So many...
Careful. Be very careful.
No. Let's see if I can do this without her smacking me here. Who have many years of experience out there in the real world, in the writing world, in the reviewing world, in the storytelling world, who can contribute so much. We're a mentoring site, and we have experienced writers working with young writers. Where else are they going to learn?
Well, that's right. That's right. The thing I was just thinking about, that the season has opened, and you're talking about that on the site you'll have reviews of the show, you'll have interviews of people that were involved, and you've recently been down to write about and to interview on Velocity of Autumn at Arena Stage with Estelle Parsons. And did you do the article on the writer, the author?
I did. Eric Coble, who I know.
Yeah.
See, this is such a small world, as you know.
Yeah.
You bump into people you've known a long time. In fact, a few years ago, I was asked by Eric and Larry Kay. They wrote this musical. They actually co-wrote the lyrics to a musical. Dan Kazemi wrote the music to this very strange musical, and really beautiful musical, and funny as hell musical, called The Tapioca Miracle.
Wonderful.
I wanted them to call it Putting It Together, but they wouldn't do it. So it's about, quickly, it's about a woman who opens her refrigerator and sees the face of Ezekiel the prophet in her tapioca.
I've read about it. Now, tell us from that article, which I read and really enjoyed, tell us about how Eric Coble tells you that he got the idea for this play. I thought that was so interesting.
It's very biographical, and I don't want to give a lot of it away. But, you know, the play is about a woman who's also a mother and a son who she hasn't seen in a long time, coming to try to make peace and try to get her out of her house because her mind is not working very well.
I'm starving. What's for breakfast?
Guten Tag!
Johannes, Franz!
I bring you arts-enriched Raisinblums, fortified with increased test scores and creative problem-solving skills.
It's good!
And good for you.
Bobby? Susie?
Don't worry, that's just the power of the arts!
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
Hello, welcome back. You stepped away just for a minute, and we're having this wonderful conversation with Joel Markowitz, publisher, editor of DC Metro Theater Arts. We're talking about the theater today, the bedrock of story and storytelling. We've been talking about the velocity of autumn at the arena stage, but there are other things happening right now, too, that I know you've seen and you have some ideas about. What about this Torch Song?
Torch Song Trilogy was,
Right.
people know Harvey Fierstein, right? And he wrote this fantastic play many, many years ago. Very few people have revived it. It's a tough show to do.
Where is it?
It's over at the Studio Theater
Okay.
on the corner of 14th and P Streets. And they brought in this incredible guy from New York. And he is it's one of the best performances I've ever seen.
Is this the lead?
It's the lead,
And he is
Brandon Aramowitz,
Brandon
who's
Ramowitz.
quite remarkable. I mean, how would you like to step into the shoes of this man, trying to recreate or even try to perform a role that is, associated? It's like when people try to do The King and I with the old Brenner, we were talking about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's a very powerful show about a gay man who's trying to figure out, he wants to be in a relationship, and he is in several in the show, and I don't want to give them away. All I can say is Estelle Getty from the Golden Girls had her big start there in the show playing the mother.
Oh, wow.
Now, here's a show that happened, in the late 70s, 80s, and things have not changed that much. Although we have gay rights now, and the Supreme Court helped gay marriage a few months ago, gay people are still having a tough time being accepted by parents and by society. So here is a man who's a drag artist, who has lots of feelings. He adopts a kid, and that's happening a lot today. But Torch Song Trilogy has so much heart in it. It's beautifully written. It's hysterical but poignant, all at the same time. How many plays are like that are so well written, but also very current? It can be associated with, you don't have to be gay or straight or in between to still go through those times trying to find the right relationship, trying to get along with the parents. Things have not changed so much.
Interesting.
And Michael Kahn, who directs and is the artistic director of Shakespeare Theater Company, is directing it there. So what's nice and what we see a lot is you see artistic directors and directors from other theaters going to other theaters and directing. And they're also getting a chance to direct some of the very good and talented local talent. And that takes us to Alex Mills that we wanted to talk about.
You had said something about him.
Now,
Yeah.
here's Alex Mills. Here's a kid who, wanted to go to college, was trying to, save money up to go to college. He was at Sonetic Theater. And Sonetic Theater is a movement theater. It's hard to describe what they do. But they've done all this silent Shakespeare productions where there is no talking, but you get the whole story done through dance and athleticism and a fantastic score and amazing staging and special effects. They're one of my favorite theater companies in the area, and they work out of Arlington. They're in the old space where Arena Stage was before they rebuilt and renovated.
Okay.
There's in Crystal City, right in the metro. And Alex is this young kid who, the Washington Post always called him a rubber band, a human rubber band. The things he could do on the stage, your jaw would hurt because it was dropping so much during the shows. And here he is, a kid who never really talked in these shows, and he's become this incredible young actor.
So he's in Torch Song.
He's in Torch Song Trilogy. He plays, Arnold is the name of the main character, his lover, his young lover. And I won't tell you what happens to this character, but it's a tragic. It's a tragedy what happens to him. But he is so good now, and he's been in R&J over Signature, which was a modern take on Romeo and Juliet. I just love the kid because he's so honest, so sensitive. He works so hard, and he's come out of nowhere to be hired by so many theaters now to show that he's multi-talented. And that's what's so nice about working in this area. They're noticing who these young talents are, and they're getting hired.
Okay, so the thing about it is that this is another reason for the importance of really reviewing and giving a spotlight to these lesser, I don't mean that in any derogatory way,
But
unknown theaters where you're going to find the unknown talent, and they'll rise up.
But you'll see them. I've been doing these articles called Scene Stealers for years, When I was at another site, they were regular articles, and they always got huge readership because I was introducing, it was like I was everybody's local agent.
Right.
And I was introducing people like Alex Mills, who made the scene stealers. I've lost count so many times. And it's so nice to go to the theater now and I see these scene stealers up on the stage. I feel like the grandmother, you know, the little Jewish bubby was going to see them.
But you know, that's one of the characteristics that you bring even to the site, DC Metro Theater Arts, Joel, is you help people.
Well, you know, we have to help each other out because
Right.
theater is still a luxury today.
Yes.
And most of the theaters, especially the small theaters, they just don't have money. So my thing is, how can we help each other? They put our ads in their programs. That helps us a lot. It's expensive to advertise.
Yeah.
And so I'll do ad swaps with them to help them. When they call me up and say, how much are your ad rates? I say, what can you afford? How can we help each other? That's my price. And I think that's why we have so many ads up there. But what's nice when you go to our site is you see ads and stories from everywhere. The theater community, the arts community, is not just the professional theaters.
No, it's not.
Or the professional concert halls. There are concerts in people's basements now that are fantastic concerts, in churches. And you've been to a bunch of those.
Right.
And they're everywhere. They're in every little city. They're in barns. They're everywhere.
Well, you know, that in the storytelling realm, we have the house concert.
Right.
And, you know, I remember that years ago, that during the time when women artists were sort of closed out of the visual arts, you know, that you started the alternative movement. Right. And I think the theater in the D.C. area particularly has just shown how that can help. I mean, you have these places in libraries and other things, and theaters developed out of them.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
I know, because we're working all day and night trying to post it.
Right, right.
There's so much out there. I know every month when I put my schedule together, it takes hours and hours and hours and hours. It used to be, when I first moved here in 1984, it would take me maybe a half hour to put one of these things together. Now it can take up to 20 hours. There is so much out there, and we have to call theaters and make sure, because press dates change all the time, things get rescheduled, and they don't update those websites.
Right.
And so we always have to see what's out there and try to find more. The one thing that we're not covering enough of, and maybe somebody out there can help us, and maybe you'd like to write for the site, and help us cover more schools. So important. We have so many great young talents on the stage in local high schools.
That's right.
Now, the Cappy Awards cover a lot of it, and I'm grateful to them. But I would like to cover more, too, and try to help them, too. So if you're a student out there, and we have several students writing for us, covering universities, we'd like to do more of that, let us know. And I would love to talk to you about that.
You see, you heard that. You heard that right away. And it's the schools is true. I know when my own kids were in school and they were in theater and my grandchildren were in theater and I went to Friends, you just see some amazing things, you know, that happen on the high school stage.
I mean, you look at Catholic University, American University, George Washington University, they're putting on amazing productions. And where do you see these kids? You see them on the professional stages, community stages. You see them everywhere here.
Exactly.
We have great talent here, and my goal has always been, since I started writing, let's try to keep some of them here, because they do bring in Broadway stars. It's wonderful to see Estelle Parsons here. I can't imagine that show without her, and I'm so happy she's still working.
Oh yeah, she is an inspiration,
To
especially to the aging population or the aging in the population. Right. To see somebody 86 going on 87 years old
who can do
doing
8 productions,
what she's doing.
8 performances a week.
Amazing, amazing.
A 2-person show for 90 minutes. She has hundreds and hundreds of lines. I don't know how she does it. I can't remember my name half the time. I don't know how this woman does it.
Well, you know, the other thing that you just reminded me of when you were talking about the Cappy Awards, there's some big awards that are being given out in town, aren't they? The Helen Hayes?
Well, the Helen Hayes Awards have been here for a long time, and it honors local theater, but it's professional theater. And this year they decided to break into different categories. They're going to have the Helen Awards and the Hayes Awards. And we were kibitzing here on the way here. If Helen Hayes had a middle name, they would have 3 different. Thank God. Thank you, Helen, for not having a middle name. It would be even more interesting. So that's going to start at the end of the year. But basically what it did was it split it into smaller theaters or theaters that are utilizing equity or non-equity actors. It's hard to explain because there's so many components of it. So you can go to our site and type in Helen Hayes Awards, or you can go to Theater Washington's website and you can read all about it there. In fact, you can even see the presentation they gave us last Tuesday is on there, and that will explain it to you. But what's happening now is that they want to make sure that the small theaters are not competing against the very large theaters and have less of an opportunity to be honored.
This is so important. I mean, the smaller theater is going to grow, and the actors are going to have a better opportunity to get recognized significantly.
Well, they've been winning a lot. I think that's one of the problems, too, that the big theaters were going like, how can they keep beating us here?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of everything there, and I think it's more fair. We'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. But all I know is if you're a Helen nominee, this gets crazy, people, or a Hayes nominee, you're still winning the Helen Hayes Award.
Yeah, see, that's what I think is just so important, that especially for a young theater or for a young actor, to have an opportunity, have a significant recognition early in their career.
And if you're in the small theater, you'll still be recognized, and you'll still win a Helen Hayes Award.
Yes.
It looks great on the resume.
It does. It does. Now, just to back up, I'm going to do an interesting thing for you coming up, which is going to say, I'm not a theater critic, but I'm going to do something because of Estelle Parsons and the fact that I do have a relationship to her as being an elder performer. But I'm going to that play with my son.
Right.
And of course, she plays with her son in the theater. I think that's an interesting
Angle.
Yeah, it's an interesting comparison between somebody coming off the stage. But what I was going to ask you about with Eric Coble that touched me was that he told you that he got the idea by passing a brownstone in Brooklyn where an old woman was living. Do you remember that? Am I remembering that correctly?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, you never know what's going to inspire you, right? You're a storyteller.
Yeah, right.
I remember I went to a film festival in New York, in the Village, and there was this very interesting short film about a man who was basically stealing flowers from graves and selling them in front of the gate for families who forgot to bring the flowers. It was
it was a service.
It was a service. Things were blooming.
Yes, it was a service.
He was trying to establish roots, he tells me. But anyways,
That's funny.
It was all very crazy. But then the filmmaker talked about how he would see this guy all the time. He just walked by. The guy tried to sell him something, but he forgot to take the card out that said, "I came to visit you, Bernie. I never liked you before, but I've changed."
But don't you think, I think what we're really talking about here, and in everything of the conversation is so exciting.
Right.
Theater's all about ideas, isn't it?
It's about ideas, experiences, hopes and dreams and wishes and failures and successes. And the one thing I always ask when I interview is, what experiences do you bring to this role? And how do they affect your performance? I always ask people, what were you reaching back to try to help you create this performance? And the answers I get are always riveting and always interesting. And that's so important. People can create stories, can write plays, can write films, can win Academy Awards and Tony Awards based on an experience that they really didn't want to remember. That later on they pulled back. How many times I say that my mother used to scream at me, do this, do that, do this, do that. And then later on you say, you know what, as much as I hated it then, I really appreciate it now.
Yeah.
Because you see some kids screaming at their parents and disrespecting them, on the metro or in a store, and you say, I turn to them and I say, my mother would have cut my hands off if I talked to her that way.
Listen, thank you for coming, Joel. It's just been so fun talking
always
to
a
you
blast
about
coming
this.
here, but-
Now, and doesn't he leave us with something to really think about for the next time you go to the theater, and I hope it'll be very soon, is what's it really saying to you, and what do you think, where do you think the character came from? Please come back here. Stories in Focus. Thank you.